We've been here since 81. I will preface this, the workshop as a whole. So when it comes to AI usage, I think a lot of us or a lot of people usually fall on either on the side of like AI is something we cannot use. AI is something that is taking all of the is taking jobs or taking the human aspect out of things. And I or people are on the side of everything's going to be replaced by AI. We should just use it for everything. And I kind of walk the line a bit on that because as a cautionary, I usually preface this with as a small business owner or somebody who works with people or has employees, um, AI is great in saving you time and replacing the things that waste your time, but don't let it lose sight of the things that maybe you do best or the things that add a lot of value in your workplace. So if you're somebody that deals with people or deals with employees a lot, I would caution against using AI to replace some of those communications, because a lot of times if you're replacing emails or you're replacing documents or maybe even communications between, most of us have exposure to all the AI advertisements out there, and we've seen so much AI slop generated that most people have a pretty good eye and a pretty good ear for knowing that if something's been generated as AI or if it's something that is genuine. And so I would encourage you, try not to replace times where it's value added for you to be human and for your message to sound human, because a lot of people can get benefit from that, and a lot of things need that touch, especially to set you apart. That's the preface to this. But the big question is what else can we do with AI? What possibly could we use it other than just a search engine? So there's a couple of tools that have come out, and we're going to be focusing on Google, if you use Google Workspace, and Microsoft 365 Copilot if you use Microsoft 365. So there's a couple of easy to use tools that are out there. So the first one is there are workflows, which is a automated process where you give it a trigger, something that triggers the action. It will extract as much information that you tell it to and then do an action based upon that. There's whole forms and surveys, Google Forms, Microsoft Forms. If you want it to generate a survey or form for you, for someone to fill out, it's a big time saver. So you don't have to type out all the questions on the form. It can generate entire forms for you. And then the last thing is notebooks. There's a lot of notebook LM, Microsoft notebooks. It's a nice place if you have a whole bunch of data that you're wanting to sift through. You can upload a whole bunch of documents into a notebook, and then the notebook will help you summarize it or search it or look through it and not necessarily get lost in what's out on the web if you're just wanting like a controlled amount of information to search through. So yes, it is contained within Copilot and Gemini. It's one of the tools within that. But today, what we're going to focus on is the workflow piece, because there's a lot of time to be saved in workflows. And so what we are going to be focusing on is 3 different uses of workflows that I think are beneficial. The first one is copying words and numbers. So it is when you're using AI to generate workflows and using it to automate tasks, the best thing that you can do is keep your eyes open for wasted time. I think a lot of us, it's hard just to immediately think of something that we can automate in our lives. But if you are going throughout your day and you're keeping your eyes open and being like, when am I just taking somebody's information from an email and copying it and putting it somewhere else in the exact same form, but maybe in a different order? Those are the kinds of little tasks that we do during the day that we may not notice, that kind of take our time away. And those are the perfect candidate for letting AI handle that and just you do that copy paste for you. The second thing is creating reminders and tasks. So as somebody who also gets tons of emails from tons of different people all over the place, it can get it is very easy to forget an email, to forget somebody that has asked you to do something, or even like a task or a reminder, a date, a meeting that you have to go to that's not necessarily a calendar item or you don't have time to put on your calendar. You can use AI to, as soon as you get an email, if it has like a date in it or it has something, you can use that to pull that date and say, send me a reminder when this comes, or send me a reminder a week before this happens or the day before, so that I know for sure that I get reminded of this and I don't forget about it, or I don't forget about that email. The last thing is consolidating unread emails. Um, it's a big one, just because email is such a primary communication between companies or between external entities, that a lot of unread emails at the end of the day, if you don't want to miss out on something important, you can say, we can set up a workflow that says, hey, I want to look at all my unread emails at the end of the day and just summarize it, look for things that are important. Maybe you give it some criteria so that at the end of the day you don't miss something that might be important. So these are the, in my experience, the best use cases for workflow automation. So yes, you can use it to draft things. Yes, you can use it to rephrase your documents or maybe make your wording a little bit different. But we're targeting or specifically looking at places where you can save time and like just transferring things from here to there in your day to day. So now I'm going to switch to hands-on. So I'm going to be doing Google Workspace and Copilot side by side at the same time, so we can go through a couple of examples, and hopefully I can show you what I mean by all these things that I'm saying, but also maybe they'll spur on some ideas in your head of things that you could use this for in your own work life. Okay, so if you guys have not already been to these places, right here on the left-hand side is Microsoft 365 Copilot. So if you're trying to find it and you search just Microsoft 365, it's going to take you to your login page. If you guys are you only have access to the Copilot portion of Microsoft 365 with the workflows if you are using it with like a company tenant, and you guys also have that Copilot upgraded license. This is the part of Microsoft that is a little bit more restrictive for Copilot use. But on the other side with Google, if you guys use Google Workspace at all, you have access to Workspace Studio, can use it. So I'm signing in on Microsoft 365, and it's going to take you to this home landing page. That'll have like the generic Copilot chat. And within Copilot, like we had talked about previously, you're going to see like a notebook section and some different agents, and possibly your agent thing is blank, but you're going to see, you can press this all agents, and you can go to one that's called workflows with frontiers in parentheses. And that's going to be this agent in Microsoft 365 that can create these workflows. On the Google side of things, if you are on your Google Gmail, so if I'm in my Gmail account and I go here, up on the top right, you're going to see either on the available applications, you're probably going to see a little symbol that looks a lot like this where it says Google Workspace. You'll see Notebook LM, that's the notebook version for Google. Or you can search as well for, so right here on the top, see here it says Studio right here on my Gmail. So I'm within Gmail, and I see this little Studio icon, and I click on it. It's going to load this pop-up, but you can open Studio in full screen as well, which is this Google Workplace Studio. So if you guys are already using Google from a business side, Workplace Studio is immediately available. So you already have access to it if you guys have a business Google Workspace. So if you're using Google for Business, you have access to this.
So, sorry to backtrack. Would it be more recommended to create the business side of it, or to just like pay for Gemini, or because like I just don't know which way to flow into Gemini. Google, so I would assume I would want to use Gemini more than Microsoft.
I would recommend going with the Google Business side because there's a lot of the workspace features that you get with Google Business. You're going to get access to a lot more on the business end than you do on like the personal side. And at that point too, that's when you get the availability of changing your email address to a domain that you own. So if you don't want it to be,
Just started this yesterday. This is perfect. Okay.
yeah, if you don't want it to be, my name at gmail.com, but you want it to be my name at mybusiness.com, that's the other benefit where you'll have Gmail with that business email on it.
What about Edge? Microsoft Edge?
Yes, so the Microsoft 365 over here is running in Edge right now. Edge is the browser over here, and then I have this running in Chrome on the other side. So I have them side by side right now. Edge on one side, Chrome. I use their native browsers just because they usually work better. Microsoft works better in Edge. Chrome or Google works better in Chrome. That's usually how you get the best results. You won't see like warnings about features missing. The first thing I want to start with is on the Google Gemini side. So it's similar to a recent example that Annette had, but I keep coming across this for people who are wanting to do this, but in the copy and paste scenario. So in this example, let's say I have employees and I want anytime somebody emails me about time off, I want to log it in a Google Sheet or maybe send myself a reminder. So that way I have a little running list of all of the people that have requested time off and what day it's for. So in this prompt, I'm going to say, whenever I get an email about time off for a vacation request, create a new row in a Google Sheet that has the person's name and the date they are requesting in a separate column, and make a to-do list item to approve it. This is the part of this that makes it very user friendly, because there are other tools out there that do this exact same thing, but they're a little bit more technical, where you have to set up all the connectors, where you have to go through and map it to the emails and put in all the criteria and then map the data to each other. And so the being able to write out the prompt and then create it is the piece of this, or the piece that AI makes it very user friendly for somebody who has a small business or works with a small business but wouldn't consider themselves necessarily like technically savvy, because there are a lot of people out there that use email and are very good with computers, but maybe are not into or don't have no time or interest in learning how to set up or code or set up things like this. And so it kind of makes it a lot more accessible for a lot more people. So what we get as soon as on the Google side, when we generate this, is we are going to get the trigger or the starter. So when I get an email, and as I click through these, it's going to show me the details of what each one of these means. This decision, so it's going to decide whether or not the email has to do with a time request or not. And then it's going to extract that information, the name and the dates that they're requesting. And then here, it's going to add a row. And see, if you see, it says missing required field. So what it's needing from me is now it needs me to put in a spreadsheet. So it's saying, hey, get a Google Sheet. I don't know which one to use. So I'm going to press that plus spreadsheet. If you have an existing, you can do an existing. if you want to just create a new sheet, you can create a new sheet. So in this case, I'm going to have to create a new Google Sheet. And I'm just going to call it time off. So I go back to this and my spreadsheet will show up, my untitled spreadsheet, and it's going to add last data row. So it's just going to add a row onto the last one. If you have multiple sheets on your Google Sheets, so in this case, there's just one of them, you can tell it which sheet you're wanting to add to. And then these are the columns that it recognizes. Time off, I will put the request dates, and in name, I'm going to put that person's name. So I'm pulling from that where it asks to extract and where I'm adding that row in. And then the step 6 in this case is it's adding a task. If you use Google Tasks now, it's a great way to send yourself a phone reminder, a little quick checklist phone reminder, if you use it on your phone and the computer at the same time. The disclaimer on these as well is you have this editing view right here, and something that should be said is the complexity of the task that you're wanting to automate is directly related to how much maybe time and patience you have to troubleshoot it, because the more complex the task, the more time you're going to have to spend testing it out and troubleshooting it to make sure that it works. So in this case, we're adding onto the spreadsheet, and I'm having to go in and add this onto the spreadsheet and put in the what rows and columns it's adding on the spreadsheet, where I'm adding in where it's putting the dates and where it's putting the name in that within that sheet. So I'm going to go ahead and test run this and see how it works. When you test run it, it's going to give you a suggested email, a recent email that you got to try it on. And when you test run this, it is actually going to run it. So whatever actions you're trying to get done here, whenever you tested it, it actually happens. So if you're wanting to draft an email or create a document or take a document, put it somewhere, it's actually going to change that. So it's going to test it out, try to do all those things that we just told it to do. And so in this case, thankfully it ran successfully. So I got that email. In this case, it was a test email that I sent that said, would it be okay if I took April 22nd off? And that's the whole email. And so if I'm reviewing its actions, Gemini went through that and said, yes, this does fit because the body explicitly asks, would it be okay to take April 22nd off? So then if I go to my untitled spreadsheet, it said April 22nd, Easton Park. So it added that row into that spreadsheet saying that I had wanted to take that off. And if I go to Google Tasks, now I'll have that task in there for approved time off for Easton Parks. So all of the items that we've set up in this to do, it's gone through. So as soon as I got that email, it would have done this. It would have put that row in the spreadsheet, and it would have given me that task, and I would not have even had to read the email. It would have just shown up for me in that. So I'm filtering out those emails. And you can even, if you wanted to, if you're a stickler, you can add steps on. And if you wanted that email to be marked as read, so I didn't actually read that email, but since it's already taken this action on it, you want to mark that email as read. Just say, go ahead, mark that email as read afterwards, so that I don't see it in my inbox as an unread email.
Well, and this, like you did for me, you can kick back an email reply.
Yep.
Your vacation has been received or something.
Yeah, I could do this draft a reply. So draft a reply to the emails that is, so it'll show up in your drafts folder to be sent out. So as soon as it comes through, then that comes in my drafts, and I can see that draft is in there if I want to send it to them or not. On the Workspace Studio, there is a couple of restrictions. Workspace Studio will not send emails for you. It will draft them on the Google side. The other piece that Google doesn't have that that Copilot does is Google will not create a calendar event for you, which is an interesting restriction that they've put on there, but they won't let you create a calendar event. You can create reminders with tasks and with what is it? Oh, chat. You can use chat like the Google Chat to send yourself a message, and you can create a task to give yourself a reminder, but it won't create a calendar event. But if we switch over now to the Copilot 365, you can do a little bit more, since it is a paid feature and it is something that Microsoft 365 has kind of been focusing on. There are a few more features in the Copilot side of this that you can do. So my prompt can be a little bit more complex here because I can ask for it to ask me for approval and send me a Teams message. And once I press approve, it can create a calendar event in my Outlook calendar and say, hey, this person's time off is on this day, so it's on my calendar, and I always remember. I can see that it's there when I look at my calendar. So on the Copilot side, I'm going to say, when I get an email asking for time off or a vacation request, send me an approval request, and then add the date requested to my calendar with the sender's name and vacation request if the approval request is approved. So now on the Copilot side, it's going to go through and generate that same thing, and the look of the two different editors is going to look very similar, where they both have these kind of blocks for each step as it generates it. And once on this Google side, once you have something that you've tested and you want to run, then if I press this button right here that says turn on, then it's going to turn on and it's going to run for as long as it needs to. So if it's for every email, then every single email is going to pass through this. And so if that email, any email you get applies to this, it's going to go through this. So in the case of maybe something email categorization. So if you've set up, like many people do, like email categories where you like flag different categories of emails, you can use this in Google to categorize your emails for you. So read the email, categorize it, so then it's in your inbox. You can sift through categories quickly and say, this is customer related, this is employee related, this is an advertisement, I really don't want to read it. So maybe for this workflow, when I get an email, determine if it is from a customer and add or an employee based on the sender address and the content of the email. And while that's generating, we'll jump back over to this 365. So this one is now generated, and it Copilot usually asks you some follow-up questions about it while it's generating. So it's got these blocks. So when I get a new email request for time off or vacation, it's going to send me an approval request that creates an approval request that says this person's sender needs a vacation request. Do you approve or reject? And if I approve it, then it's going to add that vacation to the calendar. It's going to put that date on my calendar for that day for that person's name, so that when I go to my Outlook calendar, I can see that who that person has requested that day off after I've already approved it. So I can quickly go to my calendar and see all the vacations that are on the calendar with really limited interaction by me. All I've really done is just approved or rejected it as it's come in through Teams. What was that? So the part of that is how you describe how it wants you to create that Outlook event. By default, Outlook events are going to show you as busy, but if you want to, you can add this. So let's add that to it. So I'm going to add this to the prompt. When you create the Outlook event, make sure you mark me as still free during that time. So now it's going to change that calendar event so that it's, instead of showing you as busy, it's going to show me as free, and it's going to update that specific block. So another difference between these two is, as you're going through this with Copilot, you can do that kind of conversational editing style, whereas on Copilot you're using the prompt to generate it, but after it's generated it, then you have to edit it block by block and go through it. Whereas Microsoft doesn't let you edit the blocks. You have to kind of describe what you want to change to Copilot, and then it'll change it for you. So now if you see here at the bottom, it says, and set the event availability to free so it does not block off the calendar. So now when it creates that calendar event, it'll show me as available, so it won't show me as not available, but it'll still be on my calendar as reference. And on you same thing on Copilot. If I press save here, it's going to save it, and then I'm going to have the ability to test it. So I could send myself an email and see, we can see that request come through into approvals. Back on, while this is saving, back on the Google side, it's generated that simple task that we said for labeling our emails. So now I see those 3 blocks, when I get an email, so it's all the emails that I get. It's going to extract the information. It's going to look at the sender, the body, and the subject, and it's going to analyze it for category. And then it's going to add labels. So in this case, it's going to add the label onto that, a dynamic value label onto each one of those emails as I get them. So I'm going to test run this and see how this categorizes it. So just like with that, there are going to be times that you're going to generate these and it is going to give you an error. And that is the point where there's, in most cases, a little bit of trial and error. Don't get too frustrated with it. But the nice feature with this is you can continually run that test run, make changes, test run, make changes, test run, without a ton of delay between the two. And then once you get it to run successfully, they do make it pretty easy to go through and look at all the different steps. So in this case, it received that request. It recognized that this email is a business email, and so it's categorized that as customer, because I really have no history of sending it an email from my work email address. And so now that, if I go back to my inbox, it labeled that as customer, or put that customer label onto it.
So if you catch it missing customer emails because, say, the customer's email doesn't look like a normal one,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's a way to fix that.
Yes, so this extract step right here is the piece of that you can modify if maybe there's something within that it's a criteria that it's not picking up. So in this case, I'm giving it the email body, the email subject, and the email address. So this is the content that it's reviewing, and then this is the category here. So it's telling it to categorize this email into one of three specific types: customer, advertisement, or employee. And I can add on to this text and say, if the email has the same domain as me, it's an employee. If the email comes from eparks@vanamtool.com, it's also an employee. And so then I can test run that again with that changed information. So now I'm telling it, you can tell it specific emails, you can tell at the end of the email if the email contains a certain thing or a certain part of that. You can change those little categories that it's using. So now it extracted it, and now it thinks that it's an employee because I told it that if it's from eparks@vanamtool, it's actually an employee. So now it categorized that email and labeled it as employee. So the amount of restrictions or the amount of context you give it for how you want it to categorize things or sort through it is dependent on how much specificity you can give it. But the more specific you are, the more accurate it's going to be.
Would it be specific enough if you just put like vanamtool.com? Like,
Yeah, you can say if the sender's address ends in @vanamtool.com, then it's just going to look for everything that's in that domain. So if you're wanting to filter all your emails except for ones from internal, or all the emails except for these few domains that you deal with or your customers, then they'll get put in a whole separate category because you know that they're either internal or employees that you or customers that you're working with now. And now if we jump back to Copilot, Copilot has made those changes, and we can try to test it out on that side as well. So I'm going to try to test this, and we'll see what it does. Microsoft testing is a little bit different, where Google lets you pick a specific email to test on or uses a recent one. A lot of the Copilot testing will try to fill in the values with test values so that you can test it with values that don't really mean anything, and it allows you to test and see if it works. I do like in the Copilot version that you can edit with the conversational, because I think that makes it a little bit more, maybe a little bit easier for some people too. So it's gone through and it will send me that approval request. If you are a Copilot or Teams user now, you may use approvals, you may not, but within Teams, in these view more apps, and maybe it's already posted for you, there's an internal, it's built into Teams, and it's called approvals. And you can use it to send approval requests to people, but you can also use it to send yourself requests, or in these workflows, send requests to yourself to approve something. And then if you approve it, you can have it do certain actions, or if you reject it, you can have it do certain actions. So in this case, if it's approved, I want it to create a calendar or an Outlook calendar event for that, so it's on my calendar. But I'm going to send myself an email and see if it works. Let's do it from Gmail. So I'm going to send myself a message. And then we'll see if it works. And we'll jump back to Google Workspace while we wait for that. So if I go back to Workplace Studio, you also see that as you generate these, there's this Discover tab and there's this My Flows tab. So these are all the ones that you have generated in the past. And you're going to see here whether or not it's active or stopped. So if it's active, that means it's working right now. All your emails are filtering through it. If it says stopped, that means it's not running right now. You can make it run, you can turn it on, but you can also delete it from here. So if you just don't want it to run, or you didn't work the way you wanted it to, you can just delete it. So you can run it, stop it, and delete it if you don't want it on your list. And I can also go to this activity tab and see the ones that have run recently, whether they're complete, had progress, or just ones that had issues, and go through and look at and see if things worked right. If I'm wanting to kind of like break down and see why it did a certain or categorized a certain way. Our third example for Gemini Google Workspace is the unread piece of this. So I'm going to go back to this Discover, and I'm going to say let's do this as scheduled task. So at 5 p.m. every day, please send me a summary of all my unread emails. Highlight important ones. Send me a message in Google Chat. So I'm going to create that. So instead of the trigger being an email or something coming in, you can also do the trigger as like a time of day. So 5 p.m. every day, summarize all my unread emails. So in this case, it's going to show me read if there's something that is not shown or something that's unavailable. So in this case, it's thinking that the references come from an unavailable step, but it has fixed step 2. So let's see if we can get it to run. Step 2, summary of unread emails. So that's what the message is going to send me, is it's going to say, here's your daily summary of your unread emails. And then this, what they call a variable, is that summary that is generated in this step 2. So this step 2, it's generating that recap of all my unread emails. And so I'm entering it into this chat message. So this is just static text up here where it says here is all the summary, and then this is the variable, that dynamic text that it's generating. So I'm going to test it and see what it sends me.
Will it not send till 5?
When you're testing it, you can start it immediately and just run it immediately. Once you actually turn it on, then it's going to look for that time, so that on a schedule, it's going to use your time zone that you're on right now. So if you say 5 p.m., it's going to use whatever your account time zone is. If you're somebody that works in multiple time zones, whatever your base account time zone is, that's what it's going to use. Okay, so it test ran it. Let's see what it said. So it says, you're all caught up because I have no unread emails from today. But if I go in here and I change it, time range to last 7 days or maybe the last 30 days and I test it out, it's probably going to give me a little bit bigger summary. So if instead of this being something you run every day at 5 p.m., if you wanted it to just run on Fridays at 5 p.m. and say, take all my unread emails from this week and just do once a week, you could change it to schedule it to that instead. So now I'll go back to my Google Chat, and it's saying, based on your emails you've had for the last 30 days, it's giving me the critical item. So I got a critical security alert and I got an action item and follow up. So if I'm looking at that, I'm like, I would like to know who it's from. I can also add in this for the generating the summary. I can say, please include the sender's email address in the summary.
Does it have the capability to like link the email, like where you can click something and it just takes you to it?
Why, we can try and see. Might as well. Please put a URL link for each email. Let's see what it said. Oh, stink. So here, now it's showing this. Okay, so it did try to include a link in that, but the chat itself removed the URL link because Google filters out URL links in chats because of security features. So it says link removed. So it did create a URL link to Gmail, which is nice. But I guess you'd probably have to, instead of, see, I set it up as notifying me in chat. You could do other ways of notification. I mean, there's only a few within Google it can do. You can have it do it as a draft email. You can have it put in an Excel sheet. You can have it create a task if you're using tasks.
So even within this, it won't send me an email of like because I understand you said Google doesn't allow you to send an email to reply to someone like their approved time off, but it won't send me an email of the action.
It will not. You can have it draft an email of what it is and it'll show up in your drafts folder, but the Google Workspace Studio won't send emails for you. That is a difference on the Copilot side where Copilot will send emails. So you can have Copilot receive an email and reply to the email even if you wanted to. I mean, that's a little bit of a scary thing to set up. I usually recommend, if you're going to have it do something completely automated, like in this case I have this approval request, at least put some sort of barrier, an approval request where at least you have to just glance at it before it sends, because once you turn it on, it's going to auto reply to everything that meets that criteria. And if you put something wrong in there, for the category, if it's not running exactly right, it might reply to a whole lot of people. And so there's a slight caution to this, and I think Google has put some guardrails in so that you don't have that problem. Whereas on the Microsoft side, if you wanted to, you could set up a workflow that could cause issues, because if you're saying for every email I have, send 100 emails to every customer I have, it'll do it, but you're going to have a lot of angry people because you're going to be sending out emails like nobody's business. do you guys, so those are the three kind of broad categories of work steps in the Google side. Before we do the next example on the Copilot side, is there any of you guys that have a specific request that you want to try, or something that you want to see happen or see on the screen that you're curious about?
I don't know if you were your calendar, but
Oh, yes.
on your calendar.
I also want to say where he helped me that led to all this is I'm helping put on an event, so I'm getting 150 RSVPs. So he was able to help me set up where as they come in, it automatically goes to the Excel spreadsheet and lists them all out and drafts an email reply of we've received your RSVP, we look forward to seeing you. So the time that has saved me from having to deal with all that was tremendous and got me super excited. And then for me and a lot of our small businesses, my thought is if you have sales coming in, you know, to be able to pull those out and make those a priority and help you with that as us business owners who rely on that, that would be tremendous as well. Inquiries or orders, either way. Yes, yeah.
What other kind of triggers are there though? Because obviously there's like the schedule things with Google. There's the receiving of an email. What other kind of triggers are there? We use kind of those as the basic ones. What are the kind of the higher end things of triggers that you can have Google do that may be a little bit more advanced just for futuristic sake of us figuring out how it can apply to us?
Yes. So Microsoft definitely has a broader range of triggers, but on the Google side, you can do so especially in a business, you can do when files are edited, specific files, or when a sheet is changed. So if you want to trigger on like an Excel sheet has changed, somebody's updated something, or a file like a picture has been uploaded into a folder, you can use those as triggers. So if you're like want people to fill in a form and upload a file, that file goes to your drive under that form label. And if you are looking at that folder and saying anytime somebody uploads an attachment, take that attachment and either like send it to me, or take that attachment, move it to a different folder, or take that attachment and attach it to a reply.
So there's collaborative aspects, the triggers that you can say. So it's like if somebody adds a file to this Google Drive, the shared Google Drive folder, I need to be notified of that, so that way I can reply, or I can get a chat that says, hey, this was added, or something.
Yeah.
That just basically allows us to know exactly where and how that's been changed.
Exactly. And one of the big ones on both sides of the fence is the form response. So whether it's a Microsoft form or a Google form, you can do this when a form response comes in. So if you have a form that you've sent out to a whole bunch of people, you can have it trigger when that form comes in. It'll take that data. So if you have, let's say you have a Google Sheet that has all of your customers on it, that you're keeping track of, like all of the customers that you deal with, you can have a new customer form. When that form comes in, you can have it add a new row under your customer file and put in all the information they put in, their name, their email, their business address. So then it's on your Google Sheet there for your customers as soon as they filled out that new customer form. Or if you want it to then draft an email to them saying, thanks for signing up for, our emails. If you can reply, if you want to, for subscribe for emails, or if you want updates, you can reply updates, and you can have another trigger that says if somebody replies to this email with the text updates, then send them this or put them on this list. So you can see how these can kind of start chaining together, because if you can have it where trigger, if somebody puts in a form, it modifies a file, and then if that file is modified, you can have another action happen too. Yes. So if you get it, you can have it pull email attachments and move them places if you wanted to. Yeah.
I get PO registries and I need to pull the PO number, the invoice number, the customer, and the amounts of that, and then put it into a spreadsheet. And yeah, it comes as a PDF.
So I'm not sure what the OCR on Google's looks like. Let's see what it tries to generate if I do that.
I think you could drop your, yeah. I don't think you were just sitting there back there, you could drop that in the quad. I'm not sure if you that's what you're discussing, right?
No, but this is going right from your email
I don't know.
and then not have to use another platform.
Because I know it can read the bodies of the email, but I don't know if they have a built-in feature for reading PDF content or not. I have not explored that.
I know Gemini by itself can. Like you can give it a PDF and it will read the
Right.
PDF.
It's just
But I
whether
don't know if it will check your email for the PDF and then read it. That'd be an interesting thing to see.
If not yet, surely it's coming.
I'm sure it's in the pipeline, right? But again,
Yeah, even if you just drop them, like I can, in OneDrive.
that'd be a good way of doing it.
We're terrible about where split camp, we're kind of still half on each platform, and we've got it fixed.
I want to see if this one successfully ran or not. Or if I need to turn it on.
Hey guys, it's coming up on 11 o'clock and we want to make sure to respect your time on this. Easton can keep working on this and if you want to stay great, but for those of you who allowed an hour, we greatly appreciate you coming. We tremendously appreciate Easton taking his time to do this. When he did it for me, it's kind of mind-blowing of the possibilities. And so this is just scraping the surface, but it's hopefully an awareness that makes you want to go dive deeper in to figure out how this can be utilized in your work, where you're